Well, how am I supposed to feel about this one? Well, the team won. That's important. In fact, it's very, very necessary because a loss pretty much ends the season. It's a big win, 26 to nothing. It's a shutout, and a shutout is always impressive no matter who you're playing or what the circumstances are. But for me to sit here and say that all is well in the world and we're going to go on a great run for the last 14 weeks of the season, it's I'm just not there yet. The second half, phenomenal. And in all fairness, I would rather have a team that dominates in the second half than a team that dominates in the first half. Now, of course, you'd rather have a team that dominates in both, but put that to the side for a second. But the first half, just a lot of things really going wrong. And this team has some stuff to work on because this is not some great Bears defense. In fact, their defense may very well be the worst in all of football. Real lack of playmakers on that side of the ball. Scheme. Vic Fangio, I'll give credit to him. I thought he did some pretty good things out there today, and I think he's a pretty good defensive coordinator. But you're looking at a team that really lacks playmakers at all. I mean, Jay Ratliff wasn't even out there. I thought they were going to have him, and I have some respect for Jay Ratliff as a player, but they didn't even have him because he's still serving his suspension. So you've got a bunch of no names and has-beens on that defense, and for that first half, this offense, mainly the offensive line, just couldn't do anything. And this is starting to really become a major concern going forward because if you cannot control the line of scrimmage against the Bears' defensive line and linebackers, then who are you going to be able to handle? God, I hate to start a video after a victory by getting upset, but there's some stuff to really be aggravated about in this game. J.R. Sweezy playing for a contract extension looked like crap. Based off the way he played in the first half, I wouldn't pay him a penny this offseason. Russell Okung, not much better. He had his penalty. He gave up some plays. But this whole offensive line, I don't even want to single out one guy that much. I mean, this whole offensive line for really the entire first half was a dumpster fire. And if we look this bad against this Bears defense, which is as lackluster as it is, then what are you going to do against the Cardinals, the Rams when we play them again? What are you going to do against the Bengals? What are you going to do against a lot of these teams? And something needs to change. Tom Cable, the coaching, or the players, something has to change because the system is broken. Guys are missing their blocks. Guys are getting blown off the ball. Today, it was a whole bunch of different players. Okung, Sweezy, Gary Gilliam, just a mess. And if it doesn't get fixed, you can, forget about long-term goals this season because the offensive line absolutely has to do better than they've done so far, at the very least in the running game, because this offensive line hasn't been good at protecting the quarterback for a few years now. It wasn't very good at pass blocking the year we won the Super Bowl. It wasn't very good last year when we went to the Super Bowl. That's just not our strength. But if the run blocking doesn't get better considerably and very quickly, this season is going to fizzle out real quick. That's my main complaint. The rest of the team pretty much did their job. Worst thing I can say is in the first half, Wilson, there were a couple times where he simply made the wrong decision on whether or not to throw a ball away or take a sack or take off or wait in the pocket or, it was just, I can't be mad at him because it's all a product of the offensive line not doing their job, but he needs to read situations a little better than he did in the game today in the first half. So yeah, that pretty much put a damper on everything in the first half because the offense couldn't do anything, couldn't run the ball, couldn't pass block. And the second half, things picked up. Thomas Rawls, undrafted rookie free agent, the only undrafted rookie free agent on the team this year. Lynch went out of the game after the first half after not really doing all that much. And we put Thomas Rawls out there, and he balled out. And today was a day where we really needed the running game because the pass blocking wasn't there for big portions of the game. And we just needed to control the clock, control the game, run the clock out, and get out of there with the win because their offense couldn't do anything. So the only way they were going to be able to get back in the game would be us turning the ball over. And thanks to a guy like Thomas Rawls, we were able to control the game without risking those turnovers. So shout out to him. I'll give some credit to the offensive line for playing a lot better in the second half and allowing the good things that happened to happen. Really, everybody stepped up their game in the second half, but that's expected. You would expect the opposing defense to get tired when their offense is doing nothing. That's not going to be there every week. So we need to start playing better in the first half as well, or else we're not going to even be in the game when the second half comes around. But Jimmy Graham got off today. He had a big game, got in the end zone. I love it. The receivers did their thing, Curson, Baldwin, and a couple of drops early in the game, but that got ironed out as the game went along. And I thought the skill position players played really well. Wilson, again, sometimes I question the decision making in the pocket that he has when he decides to roll out, when he decides to, escape the pocket, when he decides to take off down the field, etc. But the results are not bad. And by the end of this game, his performance was quite good. Hitting Jimmy Graham for that touchdown over the middle. Love to see that. And we basically controlled the game for the entire second half and had a really good third quarter and fourth quarter in particular. Defense. I'm trying to figure out where to go with this because it seems a little silly to talk big on your defense after a game where you play a terrible quarterback and the offense that's missing their two best receivers. And they had, I think, their left tackle, Jermaine Bushrod, or his name is something Bushrod, went out with a concussion. And their offensive line was actually playing pretty well up to that point. So I don't know how much credit you can give this defense, but a shutout is a shutout, and I'll give them plenty of credit for that. There was some pass rush. I would like to see more, but there was some pass rush. The run defense struggled a little bit to start the game when the Bears were basically just running the ball on every play. It did seem like we were a little undisciplined in our gap coverage, but as the game went on, that got cleaned up. Even though Brandon Mebane left the game, he got hurt. Hope he's okay. We need you. Obviously, the Bears had no big plays down the field. They really never really got anything going down the field at all. All their passes were very short, and basically just kept everything in front of us the whole game. And Bears had 10 possessions, and they punted 10 times. So you cannot complain about what the defense is doing. I'd like to sit here and say the first quarter they gave up some first downs, and that was frustrating. I'd like to sit here and talk about how the pass rush needs to step up a little bit. I mean, I see teams that play us get a better pass rush against us than we are getting on these other teams. And I look at the talent on our defensive line, and I don't know why that's the case. I would like to criticize the team a little bit because it seems like we have a hard time getting pressure unless we blitz. Some of the big pressures we had in this game were off of linebacker blitzes. But you can't say too much after a game where you give up like 150 total yards and you force 10 punts in 10 possessions. So it's all right. Not a completely comforting win, but it's a good win. It shows some of the good players and some of the good capabilities on this team. But either the offensive line needs to get better, or we need to start calling the game expecting to have a bad offensive line, because most offensive lines in the league are bad this year. There might be 6 or 7 good offensive lines in football right now. And some teams, they figured out how to call a game to get around the fact that their offensive line isn't very good. Patriots' offensive line is not great, but Josh McDaniels has come up with game plans that circumvent that. We need something like that. I don't know if Daryl Bevel's the guy. He frustrates me to no end sometimes, but it's time for things to change. The last 2 weeks, fine. You lose tough games to tough teams that match up with you well, whatever. Going forward, I need to see something better, and it starts next week, Monday Night Football, but for now, we're going to enjoy this win, enjoy the effort the defense put in, and hope that Marshawn Lynch and Brandon Mebane are healthy. Catch you later.